Well, it's been an exciting night in Washington, and I promise no political discussions today, which are against the rules.
Wonderful.
Anyway, yeah.
So what are you going to talk about today?
Well, first of all, let me just say that who would have thought uh, it's almost a year ago that I met with you and Martin in Singapore that I would not actually be there in person right now doing this, but this actually has given us an opportunity to have a good session today, but invite some other speakers from other parts of the world as well to join us. So I'm doing great here, and the IFBTA is very happy to host these sessions with you and to help bring global technology for the hospitality industry forward and talk about trends.
Great. I'll let it all into your hands. So have a fun and bye-bye.
Great, thank you. Well, welcome everybody to the session on hospitality trends and where technology meets. The discussion today is really going to be one that looks first at the trends themselves that face the hospitality industry, and then we're going to take a look at the specific way that those trends will impact operations both in lodging and food and beverage in hospitality, but not only regionally or in Singapore, but also taking some learnings from around the world. But before we get started, let me give you an introduction to the IFBTA itself. The IFBTA, or International Food and Beverage Technology Association, is a not-for-profit trade association. It's actually a global one that has chapters in different countries, but also has a virtual chapter that people can join from anywhere in the world. Obviously, our total focus is food and beverage technology, but that's a very wide area to talk about because it goes everywhere from hotels to convenience stores to bars and pubs and certainly to restaurants, but also things like airports and travel plazas and other operations like that. The IFBTA is a membership organization. Its members consist of both operators, suppliers, and friends to the hospitality industry who are interested in food and beverage technology. We have meetings both regionally and virtually. We do industry events at different events around the world. And our plan, of course, is to do that in the future at FHA when we're back online in person. We also have a certification program that is free to all of our members in order to be able to learn about all the different technologies that are out there that might be used within the hospitality and food and beverage industry. And lastly, we have a lot of industry partnerships and support, such as the one with Informa and FHA as well. With that being said, let me go ahead and introduce our panel today. And if our panelists could turn on your microphones and your video, that would be great. And I'll give them a second here. With us today, we are very pleased to have Huck and Yean join us, both representing different sides of the industry, although we all wear multiple hats. We're going to start out by asking our speakers to introduce themselves and a little bit about their companies, and then we're going to go into the presentation, which will start with trends from HBS, and Huck will do that. So Yean, perhaps you would go ahead and introduce yourself first, and then we'll
Sure.
go ahead and move on to Huck.
Well, greetings, everyone. I won't say good afternoon because I know people are tuning in from all over the world, starting with you, Rob. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me so much. A little bit about me. I have a hospitality career, I would say. I've worked in all facets. I'm a chef in the past and run all areas of operations. Most recently, I was Senior Vice President of Non-Gaming Operations at Marina Bay Sands, which is a big and complex food and beverage and hospitality operation with lots of MICE and other elements as well. I left there in December, and since that point in time, I actually took some time off to help my wife who's been unwell, but I've been working with the Singapore government because at Marina Bay Sands, we spent a lot of time focusing in on how data analytics and automation could help transform the industry, improve service, increase productivity, increase profitability, et cetera. And now I'm trying to help Singapore in general doing that. So helping the government here with the Singapore Tourism Analytics Network, helping to foster and mentor a startup community around those areas, around digitization, and then advising and mentoring some of the startups. So a little bit about me and a lot more opinions anyway as we go forward.
And I think you'll all understand as we get to know Ian a little bit more during this session today that he is a closet technologist, very interested in technology across the board, but a long experience in the hospitality industry. With that, I'd like to introduce Huck, who is from HBS, a global partner in data and technology trends within the hospitality industry. And Huck, if you would go ahead and introduce yourself, give some background on HBS, and why don't you kick us off with some information on the trends facing the industry today.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Singapore. For HBS, we are actually founded about 40 years ago, and it's a global company that provides advisory services on all aspects of hospitality assets. And we have been based out of Asia for, I think, 21 years now. So we have about 50 offices right across the globe. We provide a wide range of advisory services, so things like feasibility studies, market studies, valuations, operator search, etc. We also hold and run conferences throughout the world. Most notable are the ones in Mexico, and we also have ones in South Africa. So enough said about us. I think we can go straight on to a couple of my slides that talks a little about what hospitality industry is. And I think you guys know probably better than me or any of us. Actually, this is a very wide industry, and it includes hotels and any other type of accommodation, and all the F&Bs like your restaurants, your bars, your little cafes, even travel agents and tour operators. So actually, this particular industry is highly competitive, and it's aging, moving age at all times, and actually to keep pace, right, with the industry, and to ensure how your business can continue to grow and to deliver the kind of experience that your customers want today and what they expect. There's really a great need, right, to keep up with the latest in the hospitality trends, right, to really avoid losing your market share or in some instances really become obsolete. And with the COVID-19, the needs and actually priorities of our customers have also changed dramatically. So let's delve into the trends that we do see coming out of this. It's really, I put them in a couple of broad categories. The first is really, there is now more than ever, there's an increased emphasis on really health and well-being. People are really concerned because of the COVID-19, about safety and about hygiene. They want to ensure, that, how, let's say in the food processing, how, the food is being processed, how they are being kept, and how are they being disposed of. And also, in the premises that you perhaps will spend the night or sit to have a meal, what is the hygiene level? How are they being cleaned? What kind of materials they're using, etc. There's also a great emphasis today about health and well-being. Things such as the gym that you go to. What kind of equipment you're gonna have, what kind of food you should be consuming. You go to the spa, what kind of treatment, what kind of all the natural products, and that's actually increasingly more important. The other big category that I would mention is really about sustainability. Sustainability, it's a very key word these days. People really talk about sort of renewable energy. Is your building, your hotel, your structure, is it do you use solar panels, or you are still using normal electricity? Where does your water come from? Do you have a lot of plastics that you use? You should be eliminating them. I think you see that a lot in the hotels where they do away with the plastic bottles, and they are using other forms. What about the carbon footprint? The idea is to reduce them, reduce waste. Other than plastics, we're also using a lot of paper and all that kind of stuff. So people are really looking into this and looking into how we can, going forward, um, achieve some of these things moving forward. The next slide, please. Just maybe another two broad categories. It's like people are also looking for seamless technology, right? That's where I think CTA and all that comes in, right? People want to be able to, if they so choose, be able to check in, check out of hotels using their mobile. They may not necessarily want to speak to somebody at the reception desk. They like a digital concierge. They like to pay payment contactless. They want to be maybe pay before or pay after, but without having to stand at the counter, wait for you to swipe the card. They want to be able to control, and not just a mobile check-in and out. They maybe want to be able to open the door to their hotel room by using technology. They want to be able to control the things inside the room, the lights, the TV, and all that using a mobile control, a mobile app. Many, of course, hotels have that, but how do we, really integrate everything together on one kind of a system? The other thing is about destination promotion. How do you go about promoting your destination, whether it's your hotel or your restaurant or your outlet, right? There are such things as virtual reality today. Virtual reality tours, people can kind of go there, see that, get a feel of how it feels like, sitting there, the dining experience, the living room experience, without actually going there. So these are just some of the things that when you're promoting your property or your outlet, things that you can look into. So even the marketing, there's a lot of digital marketing these days, gone on the paper and things like that. There's also, because you have Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, anything that people upload today on the social media, you got to be careful also. How do you deal with sort of damage control, right? If people do not like something that they have just experienced, they could post pretty damaging remarks, and how are you going to deal with that immediately? Also, if here we talk about probably the last item here, about unique perks, right? What is there so special about that destination, that place you're promoting? What is it that is there that they cannot get elsewhere? So all these have to sort of, it's different from before, where we go there and we kind of discover, right? People these days want to know before they go. They want to be able to experience how does it feel like without really being there, and then they may choose to go there.
Great. Well, thank you for that introduction, Huck from HVS, and giving us an overview of the trends. Actually, many things on there. Some are things we probably aren't thinking about, but lead to great discussion. So before we kick into our moderated panel session, let me just cover one or two things. First of all, I just remind you that you can use the Q&A tab to go ahead and ask questions, and those questions will be forwarded to me to ask during the Q&A period at the end of this. Also, we have a poll, and I'm going to ask the organizers to please send that poll to you. It's a number of questions, and what we're going to do with the poll is at the end of this session, before we wrap up, we'll bring the poll up, and we'll certainly ask our panelists for their comments on what we see in the poll as well. So if you would do that, that would be great. But with that, let's go ahead into moderated Q&A, and then at about 10 minutes before we conclude, there'll be some questions as they come up that we'll bring up. Also, I did get a question that you should know, is that yes, the video and the webinar will be available after the session that you can go ahead and get. But we'll send the poll to you now, and we're going to go ahead and get started on the piece. So first of all, Ian, Huck covered a number of different trends from a high-level basis in there. I just wondered, first of all, what you thought, and if there were any additional trends based on your view, having come right out of operations, but also working with the government on some things that you would like to add to that list.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, in my mind, I see four megatrends that are impacting not just our business, but every business. So first and foremost is exponential increases in technology. And I think for businesses, that means it's not a matter of whether the technology exists. It's often a matter of whether your business can learn fast enough and keep up. The second one is demographic shifts, huge demographic shifts. So rapidly aging populations in much of the world, and some countries destined to have their populations shrunk by 50% by 2100. So that has a profound impact on labor-intensive business like our own. And during COVID, I think that's being exacerbated in some ways. For instance, in Singapore, not being able to have people come in from Malaysia to help us here. I think the third one is political forces, which are also being probably ramped up by COVID in terms of barriers to immigration or trade or other things. And then the final one, which was well touched on by Hawk, which is really climate change. And, you know, candidly, we better be on top of that when our industry will simply cease to exist, or many locations will. You know, so what I ponder though, as I look at all these things is what are you doing while you have an accelerator like COVID or really a crisis to take advantage of that situation? Because hospitality and food and beverage have a lot of sacred cows. There's an awful lot of tradition steeping the industry, and sometimes change can be difficult. But during times like now, it's a prime opportunity to really take a look at your business model. I think digitization offers a huge number of opportunities in terms of better data and analytics, and how do you just get smarter at running your business, all facets of it. And then if you have labor constraints and other things, or even if people are concerned about social distancing, then, you know, how are you doing that? Do you automate some tasks, in which case you may be able to gain some labor savings, but you don't want to do so at the expense of service, because ultimately everything is about how do you take outstanding care of the customer. So, you know, it's a good topic to ponder, and now is the time to take some chances, in my opinion.
So thank you, sir, pulling that together. You know, actually, there were a few things that came up there between both of you that I think were a little bit different, you know, in thinking that are out there. But let's just start with the data piece itself. You know, there's data and there's data. I mean, HVS has put out data reports, and Yean, you have been the recipient of data, a lot of data over time, not only for the hotel, but also casino and food and beverage data as well. Is the data going to change? Are there changes in the data as we look forward that is now available to us that may not have been available before?
Absolutely. So in food and beverage, for instance, you know, menus are now being digitized, and that offers a huge opportunity in terms of understanding where people look, how people interact with the menu, the ability to change wording rapidly, the ability to experiment with pricing much more quickly than you could before, or, you know, just having a seamless check-in, the ability to gather information on a guest before they arrive in your property to do better targeted marketing. So I think that the more data you have, the more opportunity there exists, and really look at data from 5 major streams: customer, operational, human resources, building data, and then kind of the Google-osphere, I call it, you know, everything that's external market data and other data that you can derive, everything from the weather to what key events are on in town. You start to combine those together, you can get deep, deep insights into your business, and you can improve far more quickly than others.
Look, you guys put out a lot of data. You know, do you think that the amount of data that we're collecting now is going to change, number one? And the second part of that is, how will firms like HVS use that data to change what we're reporting on? In other words, people measure the hospitality industry, whether it's food and beverage or lodging, in certain ways, you know, room rates, you know, type of travelers and things. But is there going to be some new data measurement that's going to come out because of the safety and wellness and the new traveling public? So that's a two-part question for you.
Well, it's a tough one. You know, we have so much data that, and sometimes we don't have the data, right? And, you know, to be able to analyze these data, we really need to go into granular things these days. We cannot rely on a yearly data basis, for example. We really have to drill down to a monthly data as to, you know, what kind of occupancies people are doing, what kind of room rates they're doing, almost on a daily basis. which, typically in the past, we do not do that. And now we have to look at monthly data instead of yearly. And not just in relation to that, in the past, I think in the hospitality, whenever we look at hotels, for example, the room rates, we'll talk about, what's the RevPAR, which is the occupancy, and the room rate, right? We say, what's the RevPAR? What is the EBITDA? But now things that, what is the EBITDA, right? With the current situation that is ongoing, we need to look at, what is the GOPAR, right? What are we getting at GOP level? Are we really even meeting the minimum standards of the gross operating profit in order to be profitable? Then we look into the food and beverage, right? Food and beverage costs or expenses generally is relatively high compared to room costs. And it's even more so now, right? Because you have to put in all this hygiene and safety measures, different, types of storage. You can't put certain things in wherever you used to put them. You've got lots of cleaning to do, even the transportation, etc. So all these really have an impact on how are we going to really analyze the data going forward, and people's preferences. In the past, people book, 2 months in advance, 1 month in advance, but today you can't do that, right? And you probably open the room today, you do not know whether you have people coming in, or the restaurant, people book in advance. You're not sure if they're going to change their mind today. So it's really a different world going forward.
But it really does create also some other opportunities. In the next session, actually, we have somebody on from Five Guys, and here in the U.S. and in other parts of the world, for a long time, the restaurant industry has been locked down in dining, so they went to delivery and pickup. Well, all of a sudden, to do that, online ordering became, in a hotel, who's reserving the room, and you can track ordering and room service from a room. But in a restaurant, you might not know unless you're a fine dining, or taking reservations. So now you have all this new customer data that they may be able to use, like hotels have used data to leverage perks which was on your slide, and to leverage some things. So there's new forms of data as well that are out there that we may not be thinking about.
Correct. And also I think in terms of the food, right, because a lot of delivery these days, some food is not suitable for delivery. So restaurants have to kind of tweak either the recipe or some offerings, because the particular food, which is maybe very popular and, it's their chef special and all that, it will not taste good after you deliver it.
But the data can help us to figure that out, as well as the distances for delivery. I see you shaking your head there, Yean. Did you want to add something to that?
No, I absolutely. A couple of thoughts on this. In some ways, the situation that food and beverage is in now is a bit of a deja vu, because I remember after 9/11, when Priceline and Expedia came in, and I called it Easteria. And it was like, whoa, you're not on the platform, you better get there. And there was wonderful and successful intermediation between hotels and their customers. And that's happening a lot now with delivery companies. And so you may not get the data. And I would encourage every hotel to do everything they can to get the data. But you're buying a distribution channel. So ultimately, how do you strengthen your own channels and take the additional from the delivery companies if you want to, but exactly, how do you get to know your customer? I think it also opens up an element of revenue management in restaurants. So now you have 3 different channels. You've got your in-house dining, you've got your pickup dining, and you've got your delivery dining. And what are your margins through each of those channels? And so how do you forecast the demand for in-house and for the pickup and then for the delivery? And how do you dynamically change your pricing? So maybe I'm going to do a promotion at certain times of the day and that's going to simply disappear. Or maybe I will just increase my delivery time to 2 hours to discourage delivery orders when my operation, when I'm making the most money, is absolutely rocking. And then to your point, if I can get more people logging onto my platform, I can do much more targeted and direct marketing. So I think that's a huge area of opportunity. And if you look at companies like EatLab or others, and how do you then dovetail that in with all of the metrics within an operation to help you run a better and a more effective and more productive operation?
Well, I think that it's quite, I think it's quite clear though that the data availability, there is more data available, but people may not be thinking about how it might be used. But you've actually also brought up another thing, which we may have new day parts. in food and beverage, because you might in fact take delivery and online ordering as a day part now, not or it's a revenue center. It is a revenue center, but it's a day part more than just breakfast, lunch, dinner, you know, the in-between periods, because we have that data. But the other thing that you brought up that a lot of people don't think about, and I know this is going to be obvious to Huck, but you know, not everything is invented in the hospitality industry, and sometimes we can learn from the past. And without getting into age and 9/11 and all the other things that might have happened, you know, there were a lot of learnings there. And for a while, restaurants in particular could not get the kind of data that casinos, hotels, and airlines had. But today we can, and so we can get to know our customer, and so it is really an opportunity to do that. I'd like to just sort of shift onto a different subject, because both of you have brought back the changing environment, and you know, safety and hygiene is such a big area, but contactless is the immediate thing that a lot of people are thinking about. And so that's a pretty wide area. And so I'm sort of curious about your thought on contactless, because there's a technology side to it. You know, it's not just having a door handle that you can use your arm on, you know, to open up, but it's anything from kiosks to a customer using their own device, whether it's for opening up a door in hotels or whether it's for ordering at a table. But contactless means a lot of different things before you even get into the hygiene side of it. And I'd like to sort of think, because that's an infrastructure change for us. If we have to change how we get into hotel rooms and operate things in the room, how we deliver, and how customers order. So what does contactless really mean going forward, and how is technology going to help? Maybe Huck, you want to start with that?
Yeah, I think contactless, that would mean, you know, they can get to their room without, you know, liaising with anybody or human before getting there. And then when they are at the door, you know, instead of, you know, they can trigger something on their mobile, and then the door opens without them even pushing the door open, right? So I guess things like the locks and how, you know, the look and feel of, you know, having door knobs, all that will have to change. And once you're into the room, it could be a sensor, right, that they sense, which already, I think some of the hotels already have, that they can sense there's a being, and therefore the lights come on. The curtains can be drawn or open according maybe to the time of the day. So in that sense, there is very little contact needed, meaning for, you know, the guests to kind of press this or touch that, because of the so-called perceived hygiene or safety. Yeah, I think that's. You know,
But it is going to change the expenditure, or what we spend within a room or within an elevator or within, you know, I mean, it's obviously going to change it, which
the
has
system is going to change, yes.
Right.
And it may not happen so quickly.
Well, I mean, in my mind, you know, contactless is also another way that you could term frictionless, which I think is where we need to head, period. To me, the purest model of hospitality is welcoming someone into your own home. You don't make them to go to a front desk to come in. You greet them, you give them relevant information, and you help them on their way. So, you know, I think the most acceptable interface is probably someone's phone. You know, the phone, we all know, is an incredibly dirty device, but at least it's my germs, right? So if you can provide the information before someone arrives through a tool like G-Trip or others, there's multiple products on the market. They don't have to cost a bomb to integrate with the existing systems. Many of the door locks, and probably all the door locks that are produced now, have the wiring in place so that you can at least convert them to be wireless associated with a phone. And to me, it would be, how do you mirror everything through a QR code or something else, which doesn't cost a lot of money, so that you could call an elevator or order things out of your own room or order in a restaurant or whatever it is. So I don't think that you have to have a massive capital expenditure. And if you say, I'm going to create the Uber app that's going to allow you to do everything in my hotel, nobody wants to download the Uber app. You know, it's frustrating. So if you can find a thin way to do this, as long as your high speed, your internet is really, really good, and 5G is going to offer a lot more opportunities as we go forward, I think that's going to help you on this journey. So then how do you leverage these technologies, A, to learn a lot more about the customer so that you can serve them better, and then B, how do you action that data so that you can actually take and wow them and really make turn moments into memories, for lack of a better expression.
But you know what, the good news, I think, if there is some good news, is I remember back, you know, if you went back 15 years ago, people were talking about the major expenditure of putting, you know, high-speed access into any building or wireless. into restaurants, and should we go ahead and allow customers to log in or not? Well, fortunately, we're behind that infrastructure cost today, so that anything that you really add, whether it's the, I think Hawk, you said it, the door locks and the lighting and everything, actually can be frictionless, contactless, total, it's all, the infrastructure is already out there, which I guess also gives you the opportunity to work with more specific applications rather than having to worry about getting it all from one.
I would think so, yes. Yeah, I would think so, yes. So certainly, I think that's the way to go. Nobody, as Ian says, wants to have any more apps downloaded. Just that if they can just use their phone to activate, that would be great. Right.
I will point out that a lot of times when people implement technology in hospitality, they don't think about some of the operational side of it. It's a cost, and a lot of times it's an overhead cost, although I expect when we get our poll back, we may find otherwise in a bit. But there are other things that you need to think about, that if you're going to do a lot more delivery and pickup, that takes a different style of kitchen. And a lot of people are looking at things like ghost kitchens out there, is a term we use in the United States. But also I think about large buildings like the Marina Bay Sands, tall towers with small elevators. A lot of elevators, but you can't really put many more in. And also, what happens, in that environment, and of course the casino environment where you have a lot of people, or meetings and conferences, will change. And I think, are there opportunities there, or how will we address those kinds of opportunities when it's impossible to change the physical structure?
Do you want me to talk to it?
Sure.
I think part of it is, having done a lot of work on this at Marina Bay Sands, part of it is how do you shift demand for the elevators to different times of the day. So for instance, portions of your supply chain, can you avoid having them tie up elevators during the middle of the day? Can you have smarter ways for your room attendants to be working so that they don't need as much elevator time, so that when you have ad hoc requests, you can then service those efficiently and effectively? The elevators are a big bottleneck, and they are definitely a challenge. But I think, what we did is we ended up creating a digital twin. And we then could model what would happen if we did X, Y, or Z. And that really gave us some good insights into whether this was a really good, enlightened idea, or whether we were just, setting ourselves up for failure and putting a metaphorical gun to our head. I think when you look at areas like MICE as we go forward, that maybe that it takes a while for it to be come back to where it was. So you're going to have more hybrid models. I think once again, Marina Bay Sands has done a good job with their kind of virtual studios and being able to bring in holograms from speakers in other locations. And Rob, you and I discussed that. Well, that's come to a full-blown studio now on the property, which is, very helpful. So maybe before we get back to the days of mega conventions, we have people who are aggregating either domestically or regionally in destinations, and then you will beam in your speakers from anywhere in the world, and you still have a sense of cohesion. And we know from shows like this, you can still have virtual trade shows and other things, so you don't necessarily have to lose people. So the future probably is a very intelligent blend of the two, and you could radically increase the size of your audience for different aspects of it. I mean, there's nothing like being there, but you can still probably bring in people who couldn't get there for the key speakers and other pieces that they really wanted by this hybrid kind of combination of technologies.
It's funny that you're saying that, because yes, you can bring in speakers, more speakers and things, and yes, we did take a look at the holograms that were there, but also there may be an impact on the size of gatherings, whether it's a trade show like FHA or whether it's a convention. What we may find is a shift, though, that I remember somebody once describing Tesla as really a technology company that's selling cars. And we may see that hospitality organizations become, technology companies that sell hospitality, including all the infrastructure to do meetings that are spread out, deliver food and beverage to meetings spread around the world and things like that as well.
Well, I would argue that every hotel is already a data company. They just don't know it. But if you look at industry after industry, Google started off as a search company. Now they're a data company. AirAsia started off as an airline. Now they classify themselves as a data company. So I think once you start to get those deeper insights, you realize just what the opportunities are. If you look at what DBS has done with banking in Singapore, I would question whether they're really a bank anymore. And how does that business then organically and strategically expand to add more value for your consumers, but in an easier and easier manner?
So I see Huck smiling about that one there. I mean, you guys produce a lot of data, but are you going to be competing with your hospitality partners, or perhaps you're going to be the partner in providing, accessing, and utilizing that data going forward? Because there's so much out there.
Yeah, I think going forward, we're likely to be partners, and that, you know, there's so much more we can do together than individually.
Well, that's, you know, I mean, that's certainly a big area. I wanted to shift to one more question and then open it up to some Q&A and also talk about the poll. But, you know, one of the things that I did enjoy seeing, because Singapore is such a hotbed of technology and, you know, robotics. And I wonder how much more robotics is going to play. I remember the drinks being served in the casino there. I've seen, obviously, robotic kitchens and things like that. But how much do we think that unattended operations, including things like micro markets, vending machines, robotics, are really going to play going forward as new outlets, but also as a way to go contactless?
I'll take a stab at it first. I think that kitchens will be automated. Having been a chef, I've spent my life, the best chefs were incredibly consistent in how they operated, and they would make adjustments for variations in the food. And, you know, really ultimately a robot with AI would be doing very similar things. The technology is not there yet. And so I think at this point, the key to robotics is how do you get rid of low value work so that humans can concentrate on higher value work? How do you move things around? How do you distribute bottles of water like we were doing in the casino at Marina Bay Sands? But as you go forward, the value of that work will definitely increase fairly exponentially. Call centers will be increasingly automated. Kitchens will be increasingly automated. There are now, you know, you have companies like Spice out of the U.S. that are doing kind of limited restaurants. Now there's one out of Israel that's doing ghost kitchen robotics, doing Italian and Asian food, and that will continue to increase. But I think I wouldn't just say that humans aren't disappearing anytime soon. Whoever invents a robot that can cut food perfectly and cut fruit perfectly is going to be the wealthiest man in that you'll have seen in a long time, because that's still much harder to do for any robot, and humans can do it. But there'll be cobots. You know, we'll share space with these things. I think the implication for all of us, though, is that whether it be robotic process automation, changing systems, or whether it be actual robotics, our jobs are going to change a lot, because pieces of everyone's job are going to disappear.
Do you think that we're going to also, but there will be cobots, but people still want that human touch. But I keep looking at those videos online, and this could be a trend, Huck, that you want to talk about as well. You know, the virtual server or the virtual front desk clerk, the hotel in Japan that has been testing holograms at the front desk. Now, well, before you shake your head on this, I mean, Disney 10, 15 years ago was using virtual people to take your orders, make reservations, but they were there. It's not AI. It's just somebody who may be located differently. So, Huck, I don't know if you want to, you did bring up virtual reality in your presentation. How might that actually play into this?
Well, I think as Ian said, you know, definitely the skill set of the current the people's skill set needs to change. We need to, you know, get into new type of jobs where some of the work can be done by the robots and the AI. And this holograph thing is very interesting, right? But it's kind of scary in a sense too, because you can be me, right, or any one of us, right, and be in 3 or 10 or whatever hundreds of other presentations at the same time. So that is something, you know, in time to come. This is really the future world. And virtual reality, it's already happening. I mean, people, you know, you see them wearing that goggle and you know, doing this and that and
but everything else. It's going to be without the glasses over time. I mean, we're already starting to, you know, sort of be without.
Correct. Yeah. So it's going to be like just a normal thing, right? And we all get used to it. And I think we're not sure what the way is, but I think we'll all be able to move along with it and embrace it totally.
Well, I think the one thing that we do know is that technology is changing a lot quicker. There's the vision of technology out there, and I can only think about 5, 6 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, that Star Trek which I'm sure that you have out there as well, was showing going into a room that becomes a jungle, that becomes this. I always believed that hotel rooms could change their scenery. Some people were trying that on, actually in Las Vegas with the windows to change what you see out. So if there was actually a brick wall, you could actually see what you wanted.
Yes.
And I think we'll change the environment around us. There'll be technologies in food and cooking. We don't have enough time to go into all this, but technologies like sous vide, which has been around a long time, the chef will shake his head there, that will really help us to create meals on demand where we want them. But there's a lot of exciting things going on. We do have some questions from our panel, from our audience, and I would like to bring those up, and then we'll talk about the poll for a minute. But you both mentioned a little bit about labor in here. And one of the concerns of COVID has been the change of jobs disappearing. And so I'm sort of wondering two things. Are there new jobs being created because of it? And is there new ways that we need to work and communicate with our staff as well as, the customers are one thing, but how do we work with our staff as well?
You want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
So absolutely, there's new jobs that will be created. I think that the titles may lag behind the reality of those jobs. But for instance, I can see in call centers, people moving from answering phones to training AI as they train systems to be able to respond to low-value questions more quickly, but always ensuring that there's a human in the background if someone wants to talk to a human or if they can't answer the question. I think that the value of jobs will increase because you'll be able to increase productivity. So cobots working with room attendants in guest rooms, if you can handle the vacuuming, and there's some robotics now that will do dusting in some other areas, I can spend less time per room, but I need to have a better skilled and a better trained individual to work with those. So I should be able to increase the wages for those individuals as well. And I think that as you start to get more data, you need a smarter workforce. They can look at that data and say, well, how do we leverage that in order to create better service, for instance? How do we run some experiments, et cetera? I think the biggest imperative out of all of it, though, is that everyone's going to have to be changing constantly and learning constantly. And I think the speed of change will be a hard thing for organizations to keep up with, and maybe the differentiator between those who win and those who don't.
And the good news for us, the speed of change is determined sometimes also by the consumer as well as the employee. Huck, do you want to add a comment on that? And then I just have one more question I'd like to share.
Yeah, I think we also, data analytics will be a big thing in the future. And that really people need to be, conversant and, in working with, devices in order to assist them in some of the jobs. So instead of, they need to be able to overcome the fear. And I think the educational level and, and all that probably have to creep up. Like people need to be more computer savvy, how to use the applications, etc., than before.
Okay. And one last question, and I'd like to move to take a look at our poll results, but just data security. I know this is a huge subject. We could speak for an hour on it, but just a 30-second piece on it. People are concerned about data security. We were already concerned about the global data security standards, but now there's all this much data out there. Is this going to loosen some of the data available, and are the standards that are in place now going to protect the customer going forward? Huck?
I think data security is important, and we probably be able to only use it, let's say at the hotel level or the restaurant level, for your own use, and to analyze the needs for your particular organization or firm. And that data should not be shared, across properties or across, other platforms, unless it's one company with many outlets or one company with many hotels.
Well, it is a big thing for us. Let me do this. First of all, I want to thank you both for being on, but I don't want you to go away. Before we wrap up, can we go ahead and bring up the poll results? Okay, so we'll just take a quick look at this, and we'll be able to share these results later as well. But our tech solutions, are you a tech solution provider? Okay, so most of the people that have been on here are not. but would you like to be? That's very funny. Are you an operator of hospitality? And yes, most of our participants are. If we can just scroll down here, which areas do you see being most useful? Multiple choice. Clearly here, the check-in, check-out is the largest one here, but the in-room guest experience, the kitchen operations, sustainability, maybe a little bit less, cleaning and sanitation for sure. And data analysis here, I think is probably a combination of the different ones that we see. And do you believe that customers are going to want to know about the food product origin? A lot of people really want to know about that. And I think that that really goes to the food safety. Online ordering, and wow, probably the biggest answer here is online ordering creating a new day part. I think people do realize that it's there, but you know what? To leverage any of this, I think data is the key. In closing, before we just totally finish up, I do want to again thank our panelists for participating today. There were some questions we didn't get to, and you will see on this slide the email addresses for our panelists. You can send it directly to them, or you can send it to me at the IFBTA, and we will make sure that we answer as many questions as we can, and we're always available to help. I do want to thank FHA and for inviting us to do this panel virtually today, but also you can see in the chat box where you can go ahead and get more information on both the webinars and submit questions as well. I certainly look forward to the time that we all can meet in person again. We are the hospitality industry. Technology is moving very fast. And I also encourage you to take a look at the IFBTA because it is a global organization that you can participate in. And I do hope when we get together in the future, we'll be able to do that in person with the IFBTA behind us as well. So I want to thank everyone again and thank all the attendees. We're going to take a break and then we'll go on to the next session. But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.